Right now, biotech laboratories are feeding massive health data sets into AI models, searching for the absolute biological limit of the human body. The number they found is exactly 167 years. Researchers are no longer looking at death as an inevitable fate. Using advanced gene editing tools like CRISPR-Cas9, scientists are approaching cellular aging as a simple code error, a biological bug that can be debugged and rewritten. Look at this model of a chromosome. Every time a cell divides, the protective caps at the ends, the telomeres, shrink. When they disappear, the cell dies. By introducing synthetic enzymes to rebuild those caps, cells can theoretically divide indefinitely. We are incredibly close to editing the physical mechanics of death out of our DNA. But pouring billions of dollars into keeping the physical body alive overlooks a glaring problem. Human consciousness is already exhausted. Step outside the pristine, controlled environment of a longevity lab and look at the actual reality of the modern economy. Millions of professionals are physically surviving, but experiencing what psychologists call psychological death. To cope with the relentless pressure and endless digital noise, the brain simply numbs its own emotions just to keep functioning. This brain chart shows how the breakdown occurs. The prefrontal cortex handles logic and emotional regulation, but constant overthinking burns its glucose supply until it goes dark. Instantly, the amygdala hijacks the system, flooding your bloodstream with cortisol, locking you into a permanent fight or flight response. If a person is biologically locked in a state of silent panic, stretching that exact physiological experience to 167 years isn't liberation. It is simply a longer sentence in a psychological prison. Contrast that modern panic with Okinawa, Japan. The centenarians here routinely achieve extreme longevity, but it is paired with active, vibrant psychological peace. They don't rely on gene editing to achieve this. Instead, they practice hara breathing, a very slow, deep, diaphragmatic breath that functions as a precise biological override switch. This diagram highlights the vagus nerve, a neural highway running from the gut to the brainstem. Rhythmic breathing physically stimulates this nerve, sending feedback to the brain. This triggers a chemical cascade, releasing calming neurotransmitters that forcefully lower cortisol and manually dim the amygdala. Active, manual regulation of the nervous system creates both mental clarity and biological health. For daily survival, your breath is a far more immediate technology than editing your genome. To understand the absolute limit of this mental mastery, we have to look to the deep spiritual laboratories of the Himalayas. Ancient Tibetan texts describe the bardo, an intermediate state of consciousness. Instead of treating death as a biological failure to be cured, they treat it as an active transition, a process to be navigated by letting go. While tech researchers scramble to preserve physical cells and cling to a rigid identity, tantric science trains the mind to do the exact opposite, to consciously release the ego. At the peak of this transition is the clear light. As the chaotic illusion of the ego entirely dissolves outward, what remains is pure, undisturbed awareness. Achieving moksha, absolute liberation, demands the conscious surrender of control. It requires accepting impermanence, which completely contradicts the modern obsession with holding on to physical existence at all costs. You don't have to be a monk to use these mechanics. The question is how to apply this ancient physiological control to the intense chaos of a modern career. The goal is to develop trans-temporal consciousness. That is the psychological ability to lock your awareness entirely into the present microsecond, completely cutting off the anxiety of future deadlines and past failures. Vedic philosophy calls this nishkam karma, taking action without attachment to the result. When you detach your self-worth from a final metric or a promotion, you instantly cure decision fatigue, freeing up massive amounts of energy in your prefrontal cortex. Looking at this dual data chart, we can see exactly what this state looks like biologically. Up top, vagus nerve breathing produces steady, rolling alpha brainwaves. Below, stress hormones are completely flatlined. It is perfect internal equilibrium during a high-stakes negotiation. It presents a fascinating paradox. Letting go of the desperate anxiety to win turns out to be the exact biological mechanism required to achieve flawless performance. This forms a modern moksha playbook. Controlled breathing operates as the biological hardware override, while detaching from the outcome acts as the psychological software update. We spend billions on external infrastructure just to artificially keep our bodies alive, but the internal mechanics required to actually feel alive cost absolutely nothing. Escaping the cycle of exhaustion and suffering doesn't require hacking your DNA or retreating to a secluded mountain cave. True immortality and ultimate freedom are engineered right now, in the present moment, by mastering your breath and your mind amidst the absolute chaos of the modern world.